a fortune, and sometimes.
If you have starving Indians and they're seeing cattle that are around, you kill cattle and eat them. Well, somebody kills your cattle, okay, that's grounds to go out and get that criminal, whoever that is. And then the first village that they come to, they'll just kill them. They said, well, it's an Indian, they're all the same, and they had nothing to do with it.
In an effort to bring the native population under the state's control, California lawmakers passed what they called an Act for the Government and Protection of Indians.
The name of the law sounds benign, but the effect was malign in the extreme degree. Any white person under this law could declare Indians who were simply strolling about, who were not gainfully employed, to be vagrants, and take that charge before a justice of the peace, and a justice of the peace would then have those Indians seized and sold at public auction. And the person who bought them would have their labor for 4 months without compensation.
There's a white person found with a small Indian child, and he said, I am protecting him, he's an orphan. And they say, well, how do you know he's orphan? He said, I killed their parents.
Ad hoc white militias conducted routine raids on Indian encampments, burning their huts and stores of food, slaughtering the adults, and seizing many of the children. Meanwhile, communities throughout California offered bounties for Indian ears, scalps, heads.
The Indian hunters were acting on their own initiative, but the state of California passed legislation authorizing more than $1 million for the reimbursement of additional expenses that the Indian hunters may have incurred.
In the 2 decades after the discovery of gold, 120,000 Indians, 4/5 of California's native population, would be wiped out. Most by starvation or disease, others at the murderous hands of whites.
The gold rush to me is a time of extremes. People who were very decent teachers, for example, in Massachusetts or someplace like that, turned out to be brutal people in California because it was allowed. There was impunity. When there is power with impunity, people do horrible things.
Genocide is a word I hesitate to use, but what happens in California is very close to genocide. You were talking about a kind of horror which even at the worst of American-Indian relations rarely takes place, but it becomes almost the norm in California.
It was mass murder that was legalized and publicly subsidized. California entered the Union during the gold rush era, shining with gold, but also dripping with blood.
In the months since Vicente Perez Rosales had been driven from the goldfields, he and his brothers had made money any way they could. They had sold dry goods, run a makeshift hospital for malaria patients, even dug graves.
An abundant life.
Now, with the foothills of the Sierra Nevada overrun with gold seekers, Indians found themselves locked in a fierce struggle for their survival.
Miners